I love what
Yeah.
you're talking about. We're given these little nuggets of perspective because I think they're going to address why people would have a fear to begin with. And
Yeah.
it's about judgment. It's about the audience. It's about humble
Mhm.
vulnerability. It's
It
about,
is. Little bit of
just
imposter syndrome, like, am
being
I,
aware of
do I
that.
really know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about? Yeah, absolutely.
So in those areas, you can tackle those before you even start by how you're actually presenting and going first. Welcome to How You Go There, a podcast that goes beyond traditional success stories to uncover the real strategies, skills, and turning points behind people who make things happen. Hosted by Scott Montgomery, author of How Did You Get Here? Lessons of Unconventional Success, business owner and ICF certified leadership coach, alongside Linda Misegadis, a seasoned expert in business strategy, leadership development, and career transformation. Together, they bring sharp insights, real-world experience, and powerful storytelling to every episode. Listeners hear authentic conversations with professionals, leaders, and changemakers who've navigated big pivots, career breakthroughs, setbacks, and new opportunities. Subscribe now and join the next evolution of the journey, because this is how you go there.
Oh my gosh, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to see you, Linda. Lady in
It is
red.
great to see
Lady
you.
in red.
The lady in red. Somebody told me they thought that they were like, "Oh, you look so good in orange." I'm like, "It's not orange, it's red."
That's red. That's red. It's very
Yeah, right,
similar.
exactly. It's just like that. Oh, let me see. Yeah, because I wanted it to match,
I know. Look at that.
what?
Shameless plugs. Shameless plugs. Like my face
I
is red
love it.
now.
Right.
Yes.
No, well, yeah, see behind me, it's a little orange. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody else can see that, but this is clearly red. So
Yes. There's a whole song after that. So
whole
Lady in
song,
red.
that's right. Lady in
Yes.
Red, that's right. Exactly.
Yes.
I
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Great
Yes.
songs from the past. So
So it's good
hey,
to
it's
see
so
you.
good to see you. I know I'm excited about this topic. And talking about
Yes.
like we've been talking about your first job and kind of leading into your second job. And today though, we're going to talk a little bit about going first.
Yeah, well, the leadership and how you can access leadership. We've been talking about the mentoring and the coaching a little
Yeah.
bit, but how you go from graduate to getting your first job
Yeah.
to being a successful intern to getting the internships and all of that. And we had a really interesting conversation after our last podcast with you and our
Yeah.
producers about how it's so important to focus on going first. And that's the real
Yeah.
hiccup that we hadn't tapped
Absolutely.
into. So that's today's topic. Yeah, go
I
first.
know. Well, and I love that topic because you and that's the great thing about us is we balance each other out in so many
Yeah.
different ways. And a part of it is like especially in the past, more so I'm better about it today, but in the past, I would never have gone first. So I'd have sat there quietly and not said anything and then kicked myself in the ass for not saying anything. You
Mm.
are more likely to be the one to jump in with both feet and say, I'll go first.
Yeah.
And that's, has carried through for you throughout your career, I'm sure.
Well, it does. And, I think it's also tied to some insecurities and the word performing in a negative way. But it also is
Mm,
open, like it's a lot of, don't look at me, so I'll get in front of it. So there's that
yes.
underlying insecurity of going first. But I have absolutely mastered getting that out of the way because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, going first creates more opportunity than the fear of actually going first, for sure.
It makes a lot of sense. Well, and just for everybody from the context of what we're talking about is like just a couple of examples is like, let's say if you were going to go first in your workplace, for example.
Yeah.
So like imagine you're in a meeting and the manager says, hey everybody, give me some ideas, like let's start
Right.
brainstorming, let's do that. So that's a great opportunity for you to be the first to say, assuming you have something good to say, but,
Yeah.
but that's a perfect opportunity to say, I'll go first. And it's a good chance when everybody is, now they're kind of tuned in, they're hearing what you're saying, and you have the opportunity to set the stage. So it's an easy way to do it. It doesn't have to, don't put all this pressure on yourself. Like it doesn't have to be earth shattering or life changing. It's just literally say, I'll go first and share their thoughts because a lot of times too that opens a door and other people will then start sharing. So you get to be the icebreaker in that situation in the workplace. So
Exactly. Exactly. And, from a
yeah,
leadership perspective, and so, if you're the intern or you're the new employee, there is a balance. But I think one of the insecurities that we may be able to share in the positions that we hold in our career is that I want to hear a fresh perspective.
yeah,
I want to see the gregarity of someone's intent. I would prefer they ask, "Hey, may I go first? May I help kick
yeah,
this off?" There's a balance
absolutely.
between coming in hot and being a
Hmm.
performer and overshadowing a meeting by going first, with
Yeah.
the idea that I'll assure most folks that are afraid of going first that if they do it in a very humble way, they're
Hmm.
often providing something that will spark the right direction of the conversation. Because
Yeah.
I have had interns that, come in hot and it's too much. And then you're like, I don't need you to
Very
talk
good
anymore.
point.
And that's, I
Yes.
think, what people are insecure about. So I think sharing a perspective that you and I would receive from someone
Yeah.
who's saying they're going first might help mitigate the fear of going first in how they go first.
I like that. And maybe some guidance around that
Yeah.
for our listeners out there is that what I would look for is take the time to understand what's going on, maybe the dynamics of the room, maybe learn a little bit. So maybe it's not your first time when you're like, I'll go first, and then but you haven't taken the time to really, which leads
Right.
into what we talked about in our previous podcast, right?
Right.
It's about learning, asking questions, being inquisitive, being curious. Don't come in to change the entire company because you think
Nope.
you're smarter than everybody else, even if you
Right.
are.
Right.
But it's
Right.
like that's not what you want to do. So when you do go first, there's some intentionality behind it. So what you don't
Mhm.
do is to come in and say, "Well, I'll go first, and what I'm going to do is come from a place of maybe ignorance because I haven't taken the time to maybe understand the culture, the
Context.
environment, the context,
Yep.
to do those sorts of things. So, so it's like go first, but make sure that you're being smart about it and do your homework. So when you are first, you're adding value to the conversation in a way that's meaningful.
You're also allowed, and I would suggest this for folks who are like, well, maybe my content, I'll never really have context in those first three meetings, but you're also allowed to do it in a very humble way. So, from
Yeah.
my perspective, a young person coming in as an intern or a new hire coming in as an intern, may I offer, I'm nervous to be saying this out loud. I recognize
Yeah.
I don't have all the context, are phrases that give you permission to be a participant
Yeah.
and to be heard differently than I know what I'm doing. I'm coming in as a bull in a china shop. I'm performing right now, and it comes across arrogant. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
really adding that sort of humanity to how you're doing that can be really huge. And what just came up for me real quick is what an opportunity if you're new to walk out of the meeting
Right.
with people and say, "Hey, how did that land? What did you think
Yeah.
about what I said? May I talk to you further about some of the other answers?" And now you've
Yep.
invited and you've gone first. You've invited in
Yes.
a potential mentoring situation or a potential partnering situation in your career. Hey everyone, Scott Montgomery here from the How You Go There podcast, and we've got something special for you. We're on a mission to hit 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and we want to celebrate by giving back to our amazing community of young leaders and future executives. So here's the deal. We're doing a giveaway. All you need to do to enter is 1. Like this video, 2. Subscribe to the channel, and 3. Drop a comment below telling us your favorite episode of How You Go There. Once we hit 100 subscribers, we'll randomly pick a winner. And that person will get a signed copy of How Did You Get Here? Lessons of Unconventional Success, and the How You Go There Companion Guide. These books are packed with real-world insight for anyone looking to grow in leadership, pursue executive coaching, or just take the next steps in your journey. So if you're serious about leadership growth and learning from people who have done it their own way, now's your chance. To learn more, head on over to howyougothere.com.
It can be a little daunting, but by doing it, it starts to help build confidence, right? Because
Mhm.
most of the time in my career, when I've had people who work for me or work with me, is oftentimes I'll see something in them that they don't see in themselves, which is what happened to me, which I'm very, grateful for as well.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
in doing so, what I often find is that it's the confidence, right? Once
Mhm.
you get the confidence, so learning to speak up once in a while, and you don't have to be big and bold. Like you don't have to own the room. You
No,
don't have to, talk for 15 minutes. You could just simply say, I'll go first. Let me share this idea. And maybe you share that one idea, right? You might have
that's it.
16 different things
Yeah.
to say, right? But what you're going to say is that one thing because that's going to open the door. So, do it with a little bit of restraint so that you don't
Sure.
create a bad impression as well. Because, it can work both ways, right?
I've done that. Oh, I've done that. I've talked
Really?
myself
That
right out.
shocks me that,
I
that you would have done that. So,
I know, I know. So you're right, you're absolutely right, and it's also less pressure to sit on your hands and say, "I've
yes.
got an idea,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go first, I'm gonna show you I'm sitting in my hands," is the vulnerability I'm talking about also.
Yeah. Yep.
It
No, I like
creates
that.
an energy and a shift about how you're gonna interact with the dynamic. I've also had my interns talk the meeting to death and have people say to me, "Why does the new
Hmm.
person think they have so much to offer?" So
Absolutely.
you're right
Yes.
on it. Bring up a point, ask if you may, share your suggestion, and then sit on your hands for a while, especially in those first
Yes.
few meetings. You're participating, you're not performing, and you're getting to know the
Absolutely.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, and just some ideas like to help think about how do you overcome some of those fears, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's it. It's like and a lot of it is it's a fear of judgment, right? We're
Hmm.
afraid that if we speak up and people are like, "Oh, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard," and so now we're embarrassed, and now we don't want to talk again. So you got to get past that, right? You got to get past the fear of failure or judgment, and so those small steps like we were talking about, so
Yeah.
just taking and you used a great example of the icebreaker, the mints, right? So
Yes. Yes.
great
Yes.
way to do that. That's a perfect example
Hmm.
of a small way to do that. And then just what you were talking about, seek support. So find a mentor, somebody that you could bounce some things off of. And you could even talk to somebody beforehand going into the meeting and say, like if you know that person better than I do, Scott, I could say, okay, how does Scott like to receive information? Like, is he
Right.
really interested in us sharing, or
Hmm.
is this more of a he's going to tell us and we're going to listen and that's the way it's going to go? Because
That's not going to
understanding
fly.
the
Yeah.
dynamics of the power dynamics can sometimes help you in those situations too, right?
100%. And, for those who are plugging into maybe just this episode or whatever, I'm going to do a shameless plug on the book that I wrote about
Yeah.
this very subject where I talk about the mints. So
Yes.
it's in chapter 6. It's about mentoring and advising. It tells the story of the icebreaker, quite literally, that you were
Yeah.
referring to. So I would encourage our listeners to go back and unplug some of that. But you're right, it absolutely creates opportunity. And
Hmm.
you can go in and create and forge further relationships as a result of who you pick. The other thing I make reference to in this book that I would say is also true for you and I is that I have found women are more receptive, and I will
Yeah.
just throw that gauntlet out there
It's
to
true.
collaborating and having more conversations. It's been my experience that the men who understand what I'm saying, and again, I tell that story in the book, I feel closer to that.
Right.
The men who understand that have actually had women mentors also.
Hmm.
Men typically find a guy like me or a young whippersnapper to be more of a competitive idea to control than it is
Yeah.
to enhance and evaluate. So I bring those things up because that all comes up, but I really get into it in the book and I really get into it a
Yeah.
little bit further. And I know we're dancing in it on the podcast to introduce it for folks.
Yeah.
And so I just felt compelled to share. You can learn more about these incidences, but I
Hmm.
100% am all because of the mentoring relationships I've had and the reception that even you've given me in the inquiries of
Yeah.
business over the years, and you've given me and
Absolutely.
I've given you. But my point is
Absolutely.
that collaboration is far and few between for me with mostly men. I'm mostly women.
Yeah.
And I just make sure people are aware of that because it goes back to styles, which is then also
Yeah.
defined in the book when you talk about know thyself. What is
Hmm.
your style? Are you a type A, go get 'em? You might want to
Right.
temper that if you're looking for a mentor who's more slow and steady. With over a decade of experience, WorldGate LLC is your trusted partner in IT staffing, project management, and UKG solutions tailored for the public sector. We help government agencies and organizations navigate complex technology landscapes, implement effective workforce solutions, and build high-performing teams. From strategic staffing to seamless systems integrations, we bring the experience and reliability to execute, empower, and exceed for our customers. Staffing? Check. Project management? Check. Public sector and UKG solutions? Check. Experience you can trust. Visit www.worldgatellc.com today.
And just another tip too is like focus on positive outcomes. So
Yeah.
don't go into it thinking that they're going to think I'm a dummy or that my idea is
Right. They
stupid or
hired you.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, they brought you on board. So go in with confidence, and in doing so, that also if you visualize a positive outcome in that situation, then that also helps earn respect, and it creates, it fosters those skills. You start to learn the art of public speaking, which no matter what, everybody has to have it. Even if it's not that you're speaking in front of a room of hundreds or thousands of people, and when you're just talking, you're presenting to your team or presenting to a group or even to your boss. Public speaking skills are really important for you to have. And so these are great ways for you to learn those skills in a safe environment, especially when it's kind of like a team setting where it's a great opportunity for you to break the ice a little bit. So,
Totally. I love it. And I love what
yeah.
you're talking about. We're given these little nuggets of perspective because I think they're going to address why people would have a fear to begin with. And
Yeah.
it's about judgment, it's about the audience, it's about humble
Mhm.
vulnerability. It's
It
about,
is. Little bit of
just
imposter syndrome, like, am
being
I,
aware of
do I
that.
really know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about? Yeah, absolutely.
So in those areas, you can tackle those before you even start by how you're actually presenting and going first. And I think
Right.
going
Yeah.
first also is half of that. If so I'll tell you a quick story. I was at a graduation party with my son and one of his friends and his younger brother and whatever.
Uh-huh.
And one of my son's college friends was there and literally said to me, I would be very interested in your help as a mentor through internships and navigating career paths. And I'd love somebody to bounce this off of.
That's
And I
awesome.
wasn't sure if he was going to start to cry or if he was so
Yeah.
humble or whatever, but he did it. And I was enchanted. And
Yes.
he did it in a way that if you recognize, I wasn't sure if he was crying or if he was just being humble, but that's how
Yeah.
gracious he was being about this,
Wow.
which
Yeah.
lit my fire to say, hey,
Oh,
how can I help
sure.
you? It's the same if you're in a setting where you go first in a meeting too.
Mhm.
You will be enchanting, you will be enchanted, and you can really have those experiences if you bring in that vulnerability and that humanness and you go first
Yeah.
because people don't know what you're thinking. I had no idea he would respect understanding my station in life as a value add to his.
Yeah,
So many
absolutely.
dominoes fall.
Yeah. No, well, and so that's a great kind of switching gears a little bit to put this back on the leadership side of it. So it's to
Yeah.
say, as a leader, it's important that we're creating environments where people feel safe to take
Mhm.
the initiative to go first. That, we aren't going to treat you, like, oh, Scott, go sit back in the corner, or Linda,
Oh, yeah.
save your ideas for another time. Now's not the time
Right.
or the place, or
I'm
something, type
important,
of
right,
approach. Yeah,
right.
I'm way more important than you are, so your voice doesn't matter. It's really important from leadership to create those safe spaces and safe environments for people to actually be willing to step up and say, okay, I'm willing to go first, and foster that environment. I think so.
So it's so many fronts, right? We've talked about meetings, we've talked about mentoring, we've talked about applying. We've talked
Yes.
about, I tell a story of the guy at the gym that I've talked about before on this podcast who was trying to pedal, I shouldn't say even pedal. He was trying to sell his services for personal
Yeah.
training and or supplements, and it turned into him getting a job and feeling valued in a much different way than he could have ever imagined. And he talked to me first.
Right. Yes.
So
Yes.
I tend to think that, and we tapped into this a little bit about the grocery store and how I'll talk to the lady at the cash register. But suddenly, I'm renting a beach house that the cash register lady owns at cost, and I'm creating memories and value for my friends because I went first and said hello, how are you?
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's not exhausting if it's not performing.
Very true. Yeah, no, that is such a good point. And I think, it does apply in our personal lives as well, right? It carries over. And so even there, sometimes it's just as simple as being the first to say you're sorry.
Right.
It's
Good.
like,
Another good
it's,
one.
just little things like that is just that level of acknowledgement because that can also de escalate a situation very
Hmm.
quickly as well, right?
Hmm.
Emotions are factored in. And whether that's in your personal or your professional life, sometimes just being the first one to say, you know what, I'm sorry. Let's do a reset here and let's refocus our attention here. Like just little things like that, I think can really, help in
Well,
those
you and I have even done
situations.
that. You and I even did that.
Absolutely.
You've even had a
Yeah,
reaction to me in times where you're like, I need to take, and by the way, taking a minute is not going first.
absolutely.
Processing is allowed even in the meeting. If you don't want to raise your hand to go first, you can process. Maybe
Yeah,
you practice going first in the next meeting. But the idea
absolutely.
that you can apologize or that you can go first or that you can actually engage someone first is
Yeah,
really the theme of go first because it creates opportunity.
right.
And people create opportunities for people is the
Yes.
bottom line, which is the first chapter, again, back to the book, but also what you and I preach about relationships.
Yeah,
And you have to have relationships to be successful. And I'll say it again, and I've said it before, and I'll say it till the day I die. It's never what you know, it's who you know.
absolutely. No, and I
And
think that plays out all the time. I see it frequently.
and you will honor who you know and learn what you need to know to honor who you know. So there
Yeah,
it's a role reversal of go get smart and learn and do all these things and be the first to go first on everything all the time to an exhaustive state,
right.
or right, or you get to go first, and with the people that are nurturing you, go first could really mean second, and you work
Absolutely.
on where the goals are. So I just contradicted myself, but I'm trying to give the nuance to the pressure of going first is not what we're trying to integrate here.
No, no,
It's
yeah, it is. It's getting that comfortability to just, build the confidence, find the right
yep.
time, find the right environment, but don't let fear be the thing that holds you back. And think about how many times you've looked around and said, "Oh my God, I had that idea." Or you see somebody come up with some new invention or what. It's like, how many times have you looked at that and said, "Well, I thought about that too." Well, but you didn't go. You didn't take the
Yeah.
idea
You didn't
forward.
go first.
You didn't go first. And so as a result of that, yeah, we all have a lot of amazing ideas, but what are you doing with those ideas to take them forward if you really want to be that pioneer? Everybody who's ever done something was generally the first one to do it, and a lot of failures along the way,
Well,
but you got to do it.
I can't help but think of those memes that are like success is 98% failure.
Well, and just, as we kind of recap it all, is that it really is about the importance of going first, really kind of overcoming the fear associated with taking that first step and encouraging other people to do the same. So
Mhm.
if you've been bold enough and you get that courage to take that step forward, encourage your peers, your coworkers, and others to do that as well. Give them that confidence. And, I'd kind of like do a little call to action to people to say, I challenge them to take that first step in their own life, right? Is like, how can you, whether it's in personal or whether it's in your professional life, find an opportunity where in the next, day, week, whatever, where
Yeah.
you can go, here's my chance and I'm going to take it and I'm going to go first. And, see where it goes.
The other thing they could do is get the workbook that I will shamelessly
Oh,
plug that
what
has
an
an
awesome
it
idea.
it has a networking component and exercise in it.
Yeah.
To your point about what could we be doing, you can actually ask yourself and execute against some of these
Yeah.
exercises that are in this book around networking. And I
I
think that
like that.
the value of networking is really important. And
Well,
the other
and
piece,
no, go ahead, Scott.
the other thing I was going to say that you just brought up that I really want to emphasize from earlier in today's conversation
Yeah,
is try and look at how you might be received
yeah,
and recognize what Linda and I have said about what we would expect of someone who's coming into a job and how we view them going first in how they did it, and
yeah,
own that, because Linda and I are not special. We are actually interested in the supporting the next generation, and you can learn something from somebody and how they receive you. But a lot of fear is how you think you're being received, and
yeah,
pay attention to how we talked about how we receive someone, and that might help mitigate some of your concerns and your self judgment. You know,
absolutely. Well, and
perspective, vulnerability, humility. Thanks for listening to How You Go There podcast. If this sparks something for you, share it, review it, or connect with us at howyougothere.com. Keep leading, and we'll see you next time.